Welcome to another G4 Guitar Teacher Hangout. David Hart's my name. As you would well know by now, if you tune into these regularly, is the format. We ask questions, and we try and work through those questions and see what we can come up with as far as solutions and brainstorming and generally improving what we do as guitar teachers, as entrepreneurs, for everybody. Okay, so David's here from the UK. David, have you got a topic or a question that you want to talk about today?
I know last week my question was about a young student who wanted to stop lessons, and I managed to get the parents involved, and then they was going to come to see me, and that happened a couple of days ago. So I just really wanted to update you on that and to let you know what the outcome was and how that went.
Okay, great. Yep. So we get an update on that one. Yep. Fantastic.
Yeah. So the mum come in, and it was down to the practice.
Yep.
And I went through the scenario that kids love to play, and the kid says, yeah, I like playing guitar, and I said it's usually that they just don't want to do the practice, and then I kind of normalized it by saying I was exactly the same when I was a child. My dad, I quit 5 times, but my dad kept me going, and
Right.
Which was partly true. And yeah, and I give her a story, and she was agreeing. I said, there's got to be times when she's really enthusiastic, and then there'll be like a dip time. So I said, you've got my number, you must contact me, I'm here for you, get her back on track. So they kind of left on a high, and the mum was adamant that I even said, do you sit with her when she practices? And she said no, but she always wants me to sit with her. So I said, in the first few months you should sit with her, but then maybe step away for one day, 1 day a week. Say, I'm just going to leave you to it for this 1 day, and then slowly maybe step away as she progresses.
Yep.
But I managed to save the lesson, so it was quite an achievement for me, because usually I'm not, when a student stops, they're very adamant that that's it, I don't we're gone kind of thing. So either I'm getting better at this, or it's a one-on.
Fantastic. It's that.
Yeah.
That is, I love when I hear those stories, because you've done a rescue. You've turned a situation that looked like it was pretty well gone, that you were going to lose a student, and you've managed. And this is your doing. You understand that had you not taken the action and the steps that you've taken, that student wouldn't be with you now. It's almost guaranteed. So yeah, that's great. And so give me some clues here as to what changed in your mind. Was there a point where you decided, I can save this student, and this is what I'm going to do? How did you sort of approach it? Any tips you can give somebody else, another teacher who's in that position?
For me, it's all about, I don't want to fail somebody. It's not really about the money. The money's like secondary. I'm not worried if they go. And for me, it's a young kid, and she was so enthusiastic, and I just want her to be a guitarist. And through that, I was thinking, what can I do? Who am I being? That she's stopping guitar. Does that kind of make sense?
Absolutely, absolutely. If you give up on them, because really, as a coach, a lot of the time when people come to a coach, even if it's subconscious, a lot of the time they're going to the coach because they want the coach to give them a reason to stick with it. Talk me into this because I'm ready to give up. And that's not always spoken and not always said, but it's often implied, and it's often necessary. And that's what great coaches do. Great coaches get you. In my opinion, great coaches, and this is what the difference between most coaches and most teachers and those great ones, is that a great coach will take you beyond where you ever thought you could go. They will push you to a place that you never imagined that you would get to, and they will help you through those times when you're ready to quit and give up. Because we're basically, if we don't have a coach, an external coach, we're our own coach. And if we're our own coach, then whatever stories we're telling ourselves are what we're listening to. That's what we follow. But sometimes we need that person on the outside. In most cases, we need that person on the outside who can say to us, "Hey, hang on, what you're saying is irrational. It doesn't make any sense. Of course you can be a great guitar player. Of course you can do this. All right, you don't like the practice. Fair enough. Who does? You know, a lot of people don't like the practice in the beginning, but you learn to love the practice over time because as you get better and better at something, you want to do more of it. But in the beginning, it's difficult. So I think you hit a key point there, and that is you normalized the situation. So then they felt, oh, okay, so this is normal. I don't have to feel bad, or I don't have to quit just because I feel this way. And that was very powerful when you said that you normalized. So that was great.
Yeah, it's and I saved another lesson as well.
Okay, so, cool. Yep.
You're like a hero this week. I'm like,
it's a good way. It's a good way. Look, it's very empowering when you know that, because you can think back, and it's not a regret thing, but you can think back and think all those students that you lost that you didn't really have to lose, that you could have saved. You just didn't have the knowledge or the skills or the. I said to you recently about our business grows to the point of our skills, and that's not a criticism by any stretch of the imagination. Everyone has limited skills. I have limited skills. You have limited skills. We all have a limit to what our skills can do. Satriani has guitar skills. Vi has guitar skills. Petrucci has guitar skills. They have different sets of skills, different levels of skills to you and I. Everyone has a different set of skills. So, but where we get to within whatever we're doing is limited by where our skills at. But it doesn't mean that we stop there. It just means that we need to skill up more to get to the next level. And that's what all you're doing is where you are now is at a particular level. To say in this regard, to saving students, maybe you're down here a year ago. Now you're up here. And in a year from now, you're going to be up here somewhere. And that's just, it never stops. You're constantly improving. And the better you get at these kind of rescue situations. So what happens, and I can see it evolving in you, which is fantastic, is that we go from this sort of stage of where we're learning about teaching, we're doing all the right things as far as the teaching is concerned, but we're not getting to the emotions of the student, which is really the important part if you want them to stick around for any length of time. So as we develop and improve in our skills as communicators and teachers, then we start to recognize this, and we become better at the actual process of recognizing the emotions in our students. And then we go through that stage where, what we're talking about here, where we start to be able to talk students around when they get through those tough emotional times. We bring them back around and go, look, okay, that's how you feel today, but it's not how you're going to feel tomorrow, and you're going to be really happy that you stuck with it. So just stick with me. And so you bring them back on track. And as you get better and better at that, then you can go to another level, and you're progressing to this right now, and that's where you start to see the signs very early, and then you start to do prevention measures. So they don't actually get to that point. There's a point where you will never allow them to actually get to this point of feeling down or depressed or ready to quit. You just won't get to that point. And I'm not saying that you're going to do that with everyone. Nobody's perfect. I can't do it. I couldn't save every student. I couldn't. I'm not some genius that can manipulate everybody's moods. But what I was able to do was just through experience was recognize it and use a lot of preventative measures that really slowed it down. And that's the progress of your teaching, which is fantastic. And that's why the longer you do this, Dave, the more you stick to it. The less students you're going to lose, the more students you're going to, and the more your school's going to grow, the more referrals you're going to get. It just gets better and better, and that's why you kind of need to stay on this track, because sometimes you go through rough patches, but in the end you end up becoming a great teacher. And great teachers are rare because most people don't actually go the distance. They're really, really good.
I'll just give you one more example of what I said. He goes to the same school as one of my other students, and when he enrolled, he was maybe 7. Well, they're in the same class, and after the 5-week intro, I remember the mum coming saying, we're just really struggling to get him to practice. You know, and then I spoke with her. This was maybe a year ago, and I just said, okay, I said, let's give it one more month, and if you still feel the same after the month, I said, I'll just refund you the money. And in that month, I managed to get this kid practicing and on track, and now this kid comes for his lesson. He's just running in with his guitar. He just loves it. He's just 100% on board now. And I know because they go to the same school, they probably chat together. And I said, do you know this lady? And she said, oh yeah. I said, well, you want to have a chat with her because her son was exactly the same. You know, after the 5-week intro, he didn't want to do anything, but he kept going for the month and then got on board. And she said, oh right, yeah. So they're maybe going to chat at school as well and see what happened with that lesson.
Right. Yeah. There's your referral, and there's your a testimonial as well. If possible, they're the kind of students you want to ask the parent, look, could you write me a testimonial for the website? Because they're grateful usually. They're grateful that you got them to stick at it and hang in there. And as long as you know that, I always knew the right people to ask for a testimonial. There are people it's a bit of a risk. There are people who don't ask because they probably won't give you one. Generally the people who have only been for 2 lessons and are still trying to work you out. But those ones who you've genuinely helped and they're genuinely grateful for what you've done, they will happily give you a testimonial, no problem.
Okay.
So I'll add one thing to that before we move on, and just a little thing that I saw not long ago. There was this guy who he's one of the top canoe builders. He builds like these traditional canoes in Canada, and he comes from an indigenous heritage in Canada, and the canoes he builds are absolutely beautiful, and each one is worth like something like $20,000 or $30,000. And people come, from all around the world to buy his particular canoes. But anyway, they were interviewing him, and they said, do you like building? Tell us about your canoe. He said, I love it. He said, it's just it's the thing that makes me feel warm inside, and I can't imagine not doing it. And so they said to him, so where did it all start? How did you learn? What did you? As a child, my father used to make me do it, and I hated it. I hated having to do it. My father would force me to build these canoes and get through it, and I just didn't want to do it. I wanted to be over somewhere else playing games and doing different things. He said, but you know what? I'm so glad my father made me do it, because he made me appreciate something that was special, and had he not done this for me, I would never have known the pleasure of being good at something, because he explained himself, but I think he really explains most kids, but he said he kind of explained himself as this kind of kid that was always jumping from one thing to another. He didn't stick at anything, but most kids are like that. So I don't think he's an exception, but his father got him to follow a discipline, and I think that every child should have at least one discipline, and I think parents should help them to get through that and learn one discipline, because it really sets them up for life and sets them up with something that they can feel good about themselves. It helps to build self-confidence.
Yeah, I totally agree.
It's great. That's excellent, and I'm glad to hear your story as well. Yeah, with your, the times that you wanted to give up as a kid. I learned as a teenager. I started sort of 13, 14, drums, guitar. Did drums first, and it was a struggle for me. I remember wanting to give up many times, thinking this is just too hard. It's all too, because I was trying to get to the songs that I wanted to learn. I didn't want to learn to play the guitar and learn to play the drums. But the drums went a lot better because I had a teacher right from day one. I just enrolled. But the guitar I tried to learn from friends and teach myself, and it was a disaster. But I remember just wanting to learn the songs and not wanting to actually learn any skills. I don't want to do any of this stuff. It's boring. I just want to get into the riffs and make it happen. So it was a bit of a tough run for me in the beginning, but it set me up really to be a teacher, a good teacher, because of the fact that I knew that particular path was not going to be a good path to take. So as I started to develop my own teaching, and of course I came across a very good guitar teacher who really got me back on track, then I was able to, through my own teaching, sort of come to the conclusion of taking that path is just going to frustrate you. Learn to play the guitar properly from the beginning. Sure, you've got to be a little bit more patient, but you're going to be much happier in the long run.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Shane, do you have a topic or a question that you would like to talk about today? Are you there?
Yeah. Well, my main thing is still motivation, keeping students motivated. And oops, can you guys still hear me?
Yep, can hear you. Yeah, no problem.
Oh,
Yep.
okay. Thought I lost
Okay,
you.
so motivation. Yep.
Yeah, but you know, something else that's been on my mind is trying to, because I got this whole like slew of workshops that I'm doing coming up, and no one's really booking into them.
So question, Shane, why have you booked so many? Why are you not kind of testing a few, just seeing how you go first? Why have you jumped in and you got something like 10 or 12 workshops lined up? I saw.
Yeah, I've got 7 of them lined up. Yeah.
Okay.
And it's you know, they're all sort of different ones, and I kind of thought I'd, you know, because I just do them after I finish teaching on Saturdays, so it's not. I mean, there's not really a downside.
Okay. Cool.
If no one comes, and the guy who's playing drums with me, he's kind of doing me a favor, and I explained the situation to him. I said, I can pay you based on how many tickets we sell, and so I don't think there's a huge downside, and I'm just kind of trying to throw a bunch at them and see what works. But at the same time, I want to obviously book a lot of people in. So the thing that I think is sort of puzzling me about it is that everyone seems really super excited about the workshop. There's only 1 or 2 people that are kind of like, that doesn't seem so interesting. Everyone's really excited, and then no one books in. And not no one. I had 5 people at the last one, which is all right. I made £50 in an hour, or 2 hours really. But I just, I want it to turn into something bigger. So I'm trying to figure out how to motivate students to come to these workshops, because I really think there'll be really good benefit to them.
Okay, cool. I'll give you some tips here. I used I booked out most of my workshops pretty well. The first 1 or 2 that I did were a bit, like sort of sorting things out, and it was more about my confidence. I remember doing a few early on, and I was thinking, I haven't done this before, so I don't want too many people seeing me make a fool of myself. So what I did, I was cautious about selling tickets in the beginning, and just kind of a bit selective and not pushing it. But then once I was confident with it, I pushed it. Shane, can you just put your mic on mute when you just for now, and I'll give you some ideas. So basically, what I did, a couple of strategies that worked really well. Number 1 was that I made each workshop, when I presented a workshop, I made sure that I sold it to each student individually as something that they need. So it was personal. And this is really important. If you sell a workshop as, hey, I'm having a workshop on, like you're doing a workshop now, right? So you're on come and play with a real live drummer. Now that sounds good. It sounds great in theory. But going on in the heads of your students is they're thinking, oh, it's not really for me. I'm probably not good enough for this yet. And I know you're probably talking to different students, so I'm not saying that you haven't done this, but I'm just going to give you the ideas around this so that you can sort of take what you want. But also I'm talking for anyone else who's watching this. So the thing is that when I would speak to each student, I might say, hey, Shane, you're doing really well on the guitar at the moment, and we've got the smoke on the water's coming together now. You've got the timing well. This Saturday, or in 2 weeks on the Saturday, I've got the drummer coming in, and what I want you to do is join that workshop with me, and because I want you to give this a go with the real drummer, because you'll get the feeling and the sensation of that. So is Saturday okay for you? Is Saturday the date? Is that going to work for you? And depending on the age of the kid, yes, no, whatever. Then you go to the parent and say, okay, I've just been speaking to Jack, and he's going really well with this, and we've got this drummer workshop coming up, and he's ready for it, and I'd really like to have him there to have a go with this drummer, who's fantastic, and he'll love the experience. Once he plays with a drummer, he'll get that real feeling of playing in a band, and that's what I want him to get. And very few parents will say, oh, okay, they might, and as you're saying, maybe sometimes they're excited about the idea. Oh, that sounds great, wonderful. Oh, but we've got this on this Saturday, we've got that on. But you've got options there for different workshops. Or some students might say, oh, we have soccer every Saturday at that time, so we're never going to be able to do it. But in that case, you start to get a feel for which students who are available different days. So you might say, well, you're available on Sundays or Friday nights, or what's your days available? And then you take notes and go, okay, well, I know you're a Friday night time. So then you come back to them and go, look, we're doing a Friday night one, and I know that you said that Friday nights are good for you, so this is for you. And so by having that personal touch with each student, letting them know that it's for them, then you're much more likely to sign them up. The second thing is and my guitar teacher taught me this, is tell them, don't ask them. So, and I've given this story many times, but I'll give it again. Basically, my teacher came to me and said, Dave, for the next 6 Sundays, I'm going to need you here at 11 o'clock each week. It'll be for an hour, and we'll be doing the rock school program. So just cancel your Sundays, whatever you've got on those Sundays, and I'll see you here at 11 o'clock each day. And I was like, oh, okay. Now, I wasn't 12 years old. I was 17 at the time. And so it was like, all right. So I have to be here every Sunday, do I? And I was a bit nervous about it and the whole thing, but I did it anyway. But even though I felt like a little bit pushed into it, which I wasn't asked, I was told, I can't thank him enough, and for that experience, because he took me from being really, I'd been playing drums in bands. I was a drummer at that point, but I hadn't really done much, anything with guitar. I was still playing in the garage, but that was the point that he took me from playing in my own space to putting me on a stage in front of an audience, and then taking it really from there. I went professional for many years after that. So that was, I think, really, think of it almost like school, where school teachers don't ask you, would you like to do maths today? Would you like to study English today? Would you guys like to do poetry today? School teachers don't ask you. They tell you, today we're doing this. Right now, this is what we're doing. And you need to do a bit of that with your students if you want them to be the best they possibly can. You do need to be a little bit pushy, and I know that some people will give you different advice, but I believe that the students who will be your best students, and for you to do the best for your students, sometimes you've got to step up for them. So, does that help, Shane, at all? He's not there now.
Yes.
Shane?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it does help. I mean, I've kind of been saying the same things you've been saying, but I guess in a more general sense, and not making it as personal as I can. So, yeah, I'll try doing that.
Yeah, make it personal. Tell them that it's for them. Don't ask them would they like to. Don't come across as trying to sell it. Come across as, this is for you. This is part of the program that we run here. The only other thing I would say is that, when it comes to, and these are kind of selling techniques, if you like, but from a selling point of view, sometimes telling students that it's limited, that you only have a certain amount of spaces, and keep it like that. Just decide in your own mind how many people you want at each. I think sometimes when we present things, or we have in our own minds this kind of, as many people can come as they want, it doesn't create a sense of urgency. Students think, oh, okay, well, it's not special. Whereas if you limit it to what you believe is enough students for a workshop, then it really depends on what you've got. But yeah, if you sort of say, look, I'm only taking 10, and I've only got a couple of places left, that's how to do it. All right.
I was wondering about doing that, but I just didn't know what number to put it at, and
It's got to be a number that you think that you can fill. Go for a number that you think that you can fill, but also a number that you feel is comfortable to work with. And I would, yeah, I would just cap them at 10 to start with, and I'm going to be talking to Trevor about this as well, about when you present your workshops, because he's doing the Guthrie Govan Masterclass, that it's really important that you set a number in your mind what you want to achieve. It's amazing what happens. I think you guys saw Paul Andrews, how he hit the 40 mark, which is what he was aiming for, and he had that number in his mind right from the beginning, and he's made that number. And I think when you don't have that number, it's a bit all over the place. Set a number that you want to achieve, and in most cases you'll hit that number and you'll probably go over it. And that's what I found. Is you go for a number, you hit it, and you exceed your expectations. So, okay, so as far as the only other thing I can add to those masterclasses, to your workshops, there is maybe is not throw so many up at one time. That's all I would say, is maybe focus on doing one or two at a time rather than setting out a whole schedule. And that way, because it's easy for students, when I look at that and I can see that there's another drum workshop, there's one next week and there's another one in 3 weeks or whatever there is on your schedule, then I think, I don't need to come this week, I can wait a couple of weeks for the next one. And then I put that off, and then I put it off again, thinking you got more coming. So it's very easy, and it just seems, again, too much. There's too much available. Whereas if it's scarcity, the scarcity principle, as they call it, then I feel more, wow, I better get in this, otherwise there mightn't be another one for a while. Okay, so Trevor, I'll get to you now. And did you have something that you wanted to talk about, or did you want to touch on? I'll leave you to ask the question.
Oops. Hello, can you hear me now?
I can hear you now, yes.
Okay, good. Well, I mean, we've already kind of talked about the masterclass thing anyway, so I didn't really want to kind of bang on about that too much.
Yeah.
I've got a lesson coming out tomorrow. This is a couple of junior, actually I think they're young beginners. Yeah, they are. One's 4 and one's 6. They're brother and sister, and I'm teaching them at their parents' house just for the intro period. And then the idea is that if they continue on, they'll come to me for group lessons. And it'll be their fourth lesson coming up, I think. And so far, basically, they've done 0 practice. The mother, who I've asked to be in the lessons, is basically just trying to do about 16 things at the same time. She's got builders working on the house. She's got groceries being delivered. She's got other things. So she's kind of like in the room for maybe 10 minutes or something, and then she has to disappear off and do something else. So I kind of addressed it with her the last lesson, because I had a 2-week gap because I was away last week, and said, really you do need to get on top of this, because I said, you're paying me a lot of money to come here and teach your children to learn guitar, and I don't really feel you're going to get value for that at the moment, because without the practice, the lessons aren't really going to be of benefit. I sent her a copy of the parents' guide, and I said, there's some quite good ideas in there about how you can get them practicing. She said, it's not the practice time, it's the sort of hour of arguing beforehand. And I said, well, like there's ideas about getting them to teach you, and giving them points for every time they sit down and do some practice, and they get a reward and all this. So I kind of went through the ideas for it. So it'll be 2 weeks since the last lesson tomorrow, and I'm kind of stealing myself a bit for it, because I have a suspicion it'll be the same thing again, that they just won't have done any practice, they won't have filled in the practice logs, they won't have basically done anything. So I'm sort of, I don't know really, I'm kind of wondering how do I take it up to the next level, because I've already kind of broached it with her about as directly as I can, and I think that, I don't know, I mean, it almost feels like the next step on from that would be to say, look, if you can't really get them practicing, to be honest, I don't feel comfortable about continuing the lessons, because I think it's really just wasting your money doing that.
Yeah.
and kind of withdrawing from it almost, which feels like I'm giving up a bit after, you know, David's sort of heroic week of, you know, pulling all these people back from the brink. I don't want to be the one who's kind of pushing people away, but I don't know.
Yeah. Well, you know, you can't save everyone. Not everyone will be, and I do make that point. But we can save most people. That's kind of the what we're aiming for here. But even though, you know, we can give you lots of heroic stories, I can give you lots of stories. There are also stories that didn't go so well, and hopefully, you know, we learn from those stories. But we have to also understand that, you know, there are some people who just aren't going to get on board with anything that we say. So you don't have to rule out that, but what we want to do is go through what we can possibly do and go through the scenarios, and that's where I think if you and I do a little bit of a role play here, then we can get a feel for how you're handling it, to see how you can improve and other things to try. So let me be the parent for a minute, and we'll swap as well. But I'll be the parent. So basically, as the parent, I'm telling you that my children won't practice. Is that correct? Is that what the main gist here is?
She's really just saying that she's so busy, they don't get time. She has to spend an hour arguing with them to get them to do it, and she's, oh, you know, I really want to, but it's just too difficult. Is more the message.
All right. Okay. So let's go from there. All right. So I'm saying to you, oh, Trevor, really sorry. The kids. Look, I haven't had time to sit with them and practice this week, and it's really hard to get them to practice. So I'm really sorry. We didn't get any practice done this week. So yeah, very sorry about that.
Okay. So so obviously this is the fourth lesson now, isn't it, of the intro period, and so far they've actually not done any practice between any of the lessons, which you know, I understand it must be really busy. I can see you've got an awful lot to cope with on your hands, but you know, my concern is, obviously you're paying me, you obviously want your children to learn guitar, and it's a great skill for them to get, but for that to happen, it really does need them to be committing even just to 5 or 10 minutes a day of just sitting down going over these skills, because otherwise really the time that you and the money you're giving me to come and teach them, it's just not going to be paying off. And I feel bad about taking your money for something that you're not really getting back, because I really want your children to succeed. I really want them to learn to play guitar. I know you really do, so I'm just wondering, how can we work together to try and turn this around?
Yeah, look, I'd really love them to be able to play guitar, as you know, and again, I'm very sorry we haven't managed to get the practice. So I don't know. I honestly don't know what to do. When I try and get them to do it, they end up, you know, they scream and say they don't want to do it, and then say, yeah, I don't really know what to do. I'm generally tired when I get home, I admit, and there isn't a lot of time between, you know, bath and getting them to bed and trying to do a bit of practice. It is,
Sure.
Yeah, their homework and stuff. So yeah, I don't know. What do we do?
Well, I mean, the first thing off, it's normal that they're probably not going to want to practice to start with. It's a new routine. It's something different. They're probably not going to want to do that. So it's to be expected that initially it's going to be a bit difficult, but you understand, obviously, you're trying to get them to brush their teeth before they go to bed. They don't always want to do that, I'm guessing. Is that right?
Yeah, sometimes we have, yeah, you're right. Yeah,
but you wouldn't give up on that and say, that's fine, you don't have to brush your teeth today, don't worry about it, and, you know, let all their teeth fall out. True. You know that they don't want to do it, but you're going to stick with it. And it's the same thing with the guitar lessons. Initially, they might not want to do it, but if you can stick with it, once they get into a routine with it, they'll start enjoying it over time, and eventually it'll get to be something where you're not going to have these problems. It'll be, you know, okay, kids, you know, it's 4 o'clock, get your guitars, let's go, and, you know, they'll be into a routine with it. So it is going to be a little bit difficult to start with, but if you can stick with it, you know, it gets easier the same way all the other kind of things that you have to get them doing will get easier over time. But it's going to be a little bit of a you are maybe going to have to work with them a little bit to start with.
Oh, okay. All right. All right. Well, I guess, yeah, just trying to do our best. See if I can get them on track this week. Yeah. Again, I'm very sorry. I'll definitely hear what you're saying, and I'll do my best to try and get them to practice again.
How about, have you thought about offering them, like a point for every time they sit down and do a practice session? Maybe, what about putting up a little chart maybe on the fridge in the kitchen and say, okay, look, kids, every time you do one practice session, you get a tick on your sheet, and once you get up to however many ticks it is, you'll get a treat, and make it maybe a bit more of a game for them. Try and make it a bit more fun to start with.
Okay. Okay. Yep. No, I haven't been doing that, but it sounds like a good idea. Yep.
Yeah. And if you can maybe try getting them to teach you and ask them questions and put them in charge, and say, okay, look, can you show me what's this part of the guitar? What's this chord? And what string is this? And how do I play a C chord? And ask them to show you things, and get things wrong so that they have to correct you, and that'll make it more fun for them as well.
All right. Yep. Yep. Now that's good advice. Thank you, Trevor. That's excellent.
Okay, no problem.
Oh, okay. Cool. So we'll stop there. That's. And most of the things you're saying there are great. You normalized it, which was excellent. You gave some tips about using a point system, which was fantastic. You were giving me kind of an analogy of brushing teeth and so forth. So if I don't get that, then the message is there. It's clear. So how can we improve on that? So let me be the teacher now, and you be the mother, and we'll see what we come up with. I'm just going to ad-lib this and see what comes out. All right. Okay. So let's call you. I'll just call you Trevor as you are. Just pretend you're the father. Okay, Trevor. So all right. So seems like we're having a bit of a challenge here with the practice. It's normal. This always happens. Most kids, they love the idea of playing guitar. They're not so keen on the idea of practice. It's a bit like homework or brushing your teeth or anything like that. So look, don't worry about it. It's quite normal. We'll work together on this and we'll come up with a solution. So what I want you to do, can you tell me what's happening at home as far as when is practice time? Let's have a look at our schedule. When I've got here on your schedule that you've got 4:30 each day. Is that the time that works for you guys?
Honestly, we try and do that, but at the moment we've got some people coming to stay this week, so everything's kind of up and down. We've got building work going on. It's just very difficult. I mean, obviously, I try to stick with that, but realistically, it's just, every day is going to be different. It's really hard to, to sort of guarantee that at 4:30 we're going to be able to sit down and do that. There's just so many other things going on at the moment. Yeah,
I totally can relate. It's sometimes there's a lot of things going on. Are there anything that your kids do routinely? Do they shower routinely or go to bed routinely? Is there something that they do that does work to a routine?
Well, they shower before they go to bed, and they'll brush their teeth before they go to bed. Yes, that's sort of part of their normal routine.
Okay, is that at a certain time? Are we talking 7 o'clock, 7:30? Is there a time that you?
It'll vary. It'll vary a little bit, but it's normally around about the same time every day.
Okay, cool. So, what works really well, and we'll just have a look at your time schedule here, and I'm just going to give you suggestions based on what I know that works for other students. I've done this. I've been doing this for a long time, and there are certain things that we know work better than other. It doesn't mean it's going to work for everyone, and it may or may not work for you. But I'm here to do whatever we can together to try and work through this, because it's this early period that's the tough one. It's the routine, the habit that's the hard one to establish. But once you do, it's set, and then your kids will just practice every day for years and years and get really, really good, and they'll love their guitar. So this is really what it's about. We're just trying to get into that routine. So together we need to just go with it for a little bit. So what I want to try, because one of the things they found out they understand through the formation of habits is it's easier to form a habit on top of another habit. So in other words, if you're trying to create a habit which is attached to a habit that already exists in your life, it's actually easier, and this has been proven in research. So, and because what happens is the other habit often acts as a cue. So for things like where you're already doing that, which is great, where you say, kids take a shower and then they have a bath or whatever, then they go to bed. So you've got that routine of bath, clean your teeth, bed. So if that's your particular routine, different parents have different routines. But doing the routine, and we know that you might go out one night and something happens, and so you don't get the routine is thrown out, and for the next 3 nights you've got a bit of a battle on your hands trying to get your kids to go to bed on time. As most parents understand that scenario. So the routine is what matters for kids, and if we can attach the guitar practice to another routine, then it'll be much easier. So is it possible that we could attach this guitar practice to being just before something that is already a routine? For instance, just before their bath time, or just after dinner, or just if they have some TV time or some iPad game time. If you could attach it to just before that, that would be great. One of the things that works really well is if you can put it just before something they want to do as a reward. So with my daughter, for example, I get her to do her guitar practice before she is allowed to watch her favorite TV show, Operation Ouch. And so we've got a clock running, so if she mucks around and doesn't get a practice done, she starts to cut into her favorite TV show. So she's pretty good. She wants to get the practice done on time. Not always. Sometimes she rocks the boat, but we have the routine, and it's when I break the routine usually that we have problems. So is that possible at all, Trevor, to lock it into a routine somewhere?
We could give it a try. It's just it's like an hour of arguing just to get them to sit down and do the 10 minutes. That's what really takes up the time. It's just having to sort of deal with all the tantrums and everything of getting them to sit down and actually do something.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to do, Trevor, is I'm going to do the lesson now because time's running out. So we're just going to get into the lesson. But I'm going to give you a call later today or tomorrow, and I'm just going to take you through a few things here that will help, because I know exactly what you're going through, and I know it's tough, and obviously we don't want to waste too much lesson time here talking about the practice, but it's important. So I'm just going to jump out of that for a minute, but I'll cut back in a sec, Trevor. Basically, what I'm doing there is, obviously, I don't have time for a prolonged conversation with the parent during the lesson time because their kids are there to learn. So if I can see that this is a serious problem, then I will say, okay, well, let's carry this conversation over somewhere else after the lesson, or whatever. If you've got a gap after those students, it's really good then. Give the kids something to do. If you've got a game for them to play with or something that they can do, and then you can have a good chat to the parent. But I'm going to jump back in here again and show you what I would do in the case of where you're just not getting results from the parent and they're having this struggle. So here we go. Okay, Trevor, so I hear you, I understand. So can you tell me exactly what happens at home? Let's say what do you say? You tell me what you say to your children when it's practice time.
So I just ask them, okay, come on, get your guitars. You need to sit down and do the practice. And normally Thomas will be kind of shouting and screaming, or he wants to go and do something else. Grace will get annoyed because she wants to do something and Thomas is doing it first, so they'll be fighting with each other. And I've got building work going on at the moment, so I've got people coming in and out that I've got to deal with that, and deliveries going on and other stuff as well that's going on. So it just gets to be sort of chaotic just to try and get them to sit down for 10 minutes and do something. It takes so much time and effort. It's very difficult.
I can imagine. Yeah, it must be, especially if you've got builders coming in, it must be a nightmare trying to keep your kids focusing. I know exactly what you're talking about. So are you trying to do both the children at the same time, or do you one at a time?
Well, yeah, Trevor suggested it might be an idea to try and get them to sit down and do it together, so they're practicing together.
Okay.
for 10 minutes. So that's what I've been trying to do.
Yep, which can work. It depends. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. If you're finding that you're kind of battling the both of them to get them to practice at the same time, maybe do one at a time and just start off with 10 minutes each. Just do 10 minutes and then 10 minutes, and try and make it a bit of a game. So almost like the one who goes first is the lucky one, so that they both want to go first. Create a little bit of a kind of like a competition there without it getting silly, but just getting them to want to be the first one to practice. And it might be, just the way you phrase a question sometimes it might help. I'm not saying it will. Every child's different, but it's definitely worth a try. And that is to say, okay, who wants to be first tonight? Hand up, and just see who they go, and then just pick one to go first. And the other thing that you can do is try to when you're bringing them into practice, try and give them kind of an incentive to do the practice. In other words, they get to watch TV or they get to play their game or whatever it is that they like to do. Put that incentive after the practice, and that way that they're incentivized to want to do the practice. And look, I know it's hard, Trevor. I know that it's easy for me to sit here and say it, and it's easy for me to tell you do this and do that, but I know it's a lot harder in reality. So do you want to try that? Do you want to try doing just one at a time this week and see what happens?
I think the problem is, especially if I had the Grace doing a practice session, I know that Thomas would be running in every 5 seconds, wanting attention or wanting me to do something or other, and he would be very disruptive if he wasn't actually involved in the lesson.
Okay.
And I think one of the other problems is because he's 4 years old and she's 6 years old, there's quite a big gap between them in terms of their ability levels on playing the guitar as well. So some of the things that Grace can do maybe quite easily, Thomas will find too difficult at the moment. So it's kind of difficult both ways, because they're although it's only 2 years at that age, it's quite a big 2 years, and trying to kind of focus on one of them without the other one becoming a distraction and a nuisance would be difficult as well.
Yeah. So is there any chance? I'm not a big fan of using TV or whatever as a babysitter, but sometimes it's a necessary evil if you don't have another person around who can help. Obviously, if you're the only parent and you're managing your 2 children, it's challenging. I absolutely understand that, but it might be worth it just for 10 minutes to let the 4-year-old watch a show or something that they want to watch at that time. Is that a possibility?
I could try that. We could give that a try. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, give it a go. And look, this, like I said, we're just going to try things until we find what works. As you know, I'm the kind of person who I've been teaching for a long time, but I'm very persistent, and I keep working until I find the solution. I don't know what the perfect solution is. Every child's different. Every family is different. Everybody has different challenges, as you have with your family, the building and all that. But if we keep working together, we'll find the answer. It'll only be a matter of time before we find what works. And so let's just keep working it out. So if this week, if you could do that, just try that and let me know how it goes, and come back to me. And you can even ring me tomorrow if you want. Do a session and then ring me the next day and let me know what happened, whether it worked. You can ring me every day if you want this week, just to until we work it out, because I really want to help you to help your children practice, because they will practice. It's just a matter of setting up the right scenario. So.
Okay. Good.
Right, excellent. Thanks, Trevor. So can you see? Did that help at all?
Yeah. No. There's some good ideas in there. It's obviously, it's always a bit artificial trying it in here, but I'll try them out in the real world and see how they go.
Yeah, and there's a lot in and I'm rerunning tapes basically in my head from parents I've spoken to over the years. So most of this, even though it seems kind of fake or they're making up, I'm actually pulling it from different scenarios that I've been in, and it works surprisingly well. What you're going to find in most cases is that when parents realize how willing you are to work with them and how optimistic you are, that's really important. And you can see, and I hope that comes through, that I'm very optimistic that we're going to get this, we're going to work it out. And I'm also very sympathetic to their situation. At no point did I, even though I'm thinking, I could be thinking in my head, come on, what excuses? The 4-year-old keeps running in. Any 4-year-old will sit still in front of a TV. There's always something you can do to distract another child. It may not always be what you want to do, but some parents have these kind of ideals where they don't want their kid to watch any TV, or which I understand. But you've got to compromise. Sometimes you've got to find the balance with things, and there are lots of things that you can do for 4-year-olds. You just type on YouTube how to amuse a 4-year-old, how to keep a 4-year-old amused for 20 minutes, and there'll be a whole list of things there from professionals that'll tell you all these things that they can do. So often when they're using those kind of broad general excuses, if I said back to them, come on, that's just an excuse, they would be very offended. So we can't do that, right? So what we need to do is be understanding, be sympathetic, because even if I know it, I've got to remember, sometimes I've got to remind myself, and as you will as well through your own experience, you start to understand parenting a lot more than most parents do, especially young parents, because they're just learning how to parent. Whereas if you're a teacher and you've been working with kids for a while, then you start to understand a lot more about parenting, because that's what we do in a sense. We're teaching parents how to work with their children in this environment, which is, it's all the same whether you want them to play music, clean their teeth, go to bed. There's no difference. So it's very easy for us to sort of say, hang on, this is obvious, can't you see what's obvious? But it's not necessarily obvious to a parent who's a young parent, doesn't have a lot of experience, and they're dealing with it all day. It's very difficult when you're dealing with children all day, with your own children especially, because your own children will test you. They will constantly test you and keep looking for, they're constantly working, the parents, trying to get more snacks, trying to get more sugary treats, trying to get more TV time, more iPad, whatever it is they're after, they're constantly negotiating. And I know that's just what kids are like. So it can be very tiring for parents, and by the end of the day, they're just like, I don't want to do this with guitar. I've just been doing it all day over homework and this and that and the other, and now I've got to get them to clean their teeth and go to bed. Do I really have to put guitar in the middle of all this? That's often what they're thinking. It's not that they don't know how to do it or they can't do it. It's just that they've had enough. They're burnt out for the day. All right. So even though we can say that, what we're trying to do, we want to be sympathetic and empathetic, but what a lot of people don't know, and where we can help is in what I was talking about with habits and training habits and the science of habit, understanding that lining up a habit with another habit. Things like that, you'll find a lot of parents don't know that. They didn't realize that. And if you can give them these kind of tips that don't come across as parenting, but come across as training yourself or your kids, or whoever, to actually establish the habit of practice. And that's what we're trying to do. We're just trying to teach them the habit of practice.
Okay, good.
All right, give it a shot. Okay, so does anyone else have any other questions? Ben, did you want to throw something into the equation?
Yeah. With what we were just discussing, I had a couple of things I was going to say after Trevor's first role play as himself.
Yep.
Because something I always do, and I want to know whether you think this is actually good or bad, is try and explain the actual disconnect between the parents thinking the kids will want to practice and the kids not wanting to practice. And I say things like, when you're cleaning your teeth, if you use that analogy, you can then say, you don't really expect them to want to clean their teeth right now because they want to have good teeth when they're older. You just do it because you hope that eventually they will do it themselves because they see the value of the goal. It's the same with guitar. We're not expecting a 4-year-old to go, in 5 years I'm going to be able to play guitar, so it's worth that time. You have to kind of explain how it's not something they'll already want to do, even if the goal is something they want. There's just no connect between the two. And that I always kind of link it into, remember when we were talking about Change Anything and I mentioned tiered incentives?
Yes.
So, like, if they have something they normally have, you could say, well, we'll set a goal for our practice. If we go a bit below that, then we don't get that reward. If we go a bit above that, we get more of that reward.
Yep.
They have some short-term rewards that eventually get kind of traded out for some slightly longer term rewards, which again get traded out for them actually wanting to play guitar.
Exactly.
Motivation on the way to them having their own motivation.
Yeah, training them in a kind of a time frame that they can relate to. Because if it's too big, 5 years to a 4-year-old is a lifetime, more than a lifetime. It doesn't even seem real. They just, it's like, double your age now. You just can't imagine yourself at that age right now. It's just not in your head. You don't think, when you're going to be 60 or 70 or 80, whatever. So for a child, it's even worse. It's even more extreme than that because they have very little life behind them. So, 4 or 5-year-old thinks 5 years from now. What's 5 years from now? That's the future. That's some crazy world that I have no concept of. Yeah, that's really good.
Because the parents don't seem to actually think that they have that disconnect. They just seem to think if they don't want to practice, I could try all these things, but they don't want to practice.
That's it. They're focused on the I don't want to bit. Yeah.
They're probably not going to want to practice until they see the results, and they won't see the results unless they practice. And if they won't practice without any results, we have to give them some rewards of another sense.
Yeah. Because they don't. It's like what I do with Mia. In other words, she understands that she gets to watch Operation Ouch if she does her practice and does it properly. And so she realizes that's literally minutes away. It's not something a long time away. We were doing the point thing, right? We haven't really been doing that much recently because I'm really doing what you're talking about here, Ben, is bringing it in much closer to where, all right, let's talk about what you're going to get in half an hour, not what you're going to get in. You're going to get some points on the board and that'll add up, and then in a month's time you can go and spend those points on something. She still kind of gets that concept, but what she's more focused on is like what you're saying there, what am I going to get in half an hour from now if I do the right thing? And I think that's really important. So just to sort of add to that with what I'm saying about with Mia, what I've been doing with Mia, I actually recently, she was kind of getting a bit, moaning and groaning as she was getting into a practice. And even when she was practicing, she was like, man, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that. And so she was kind of getting into this mood. And so I said to her, and it came to a head, I said, look, you can't expect to moan and groan and then watch a show. You can't give me this kind of practice session and then expect to happily me to put on your show and everything's okay. So I said, she had a big kind of tantrum, if you like, or a big meltdown, and I said, that's it, no, not tonight, no show, so off you go. And she went and she cried and tantrumed and the whole thing, and then she came out and apologized and said, I'm really sorry, can we try again? I promise. And so what I said to her then was, look, I want you to, and sorry, that's what she did. She went and wrote down the whole thing. I'm really sorry, Dada, for being like that, and I won't moan and groan anymore. And I promise if you let me watch the show, etc. So I actually took her that and I said, I want you to write at the top here, if I moan and groan during practice or during the teeth cleaning after my practice, I do not get to watch my show. And then I got her to sign it. So it was like a contract. And I said, so you understand the contract? And she said, yeah. Now, that was about 10 days ago. And she's been perfect every night since. Because all I do is I show her that contract every night. Remember the contract? And she knows well, she's well aware of the contract. Yeah, it's in writing. She signed it. It's a contract. You've agreed to it. And she even pulled me up on it because she was moaning and groaning at dinner time. And I said, if you moan and groan, remember what happens. And she said, no, the contract says if I'm practicing or cleaning my teeth, it doesn't talk about dinner, Dada. You got me there.
There we go.
Yeah. So she's taking the contract quite seriously. And so, and I'm not saying the contract will work for every child, it won't, but it's working for her right now. And that's the thing about working with kids, is you need to be creative. That's the bottom line here. You've got to keep being creative. You can't expect it to work. We can't expect the same thing to work all the time. So even though we have that parenting guide, we have things we recommend, not everything is going to work all the time, and you really do need to be creative in the way that you go about
Find
getting
the one that works.
exactly, and not give up. You know, I don't know about you, but you know, we have to do it to ourselves sometimes. You know, maybe I'm recently back jogging. I don't want to jog most days, but I've got to come up with some creative idea in my head to convince myself to go. Got to give myself a compelling reason. So it's the same. We do it with ourselves. In our own psychology, we have to motivate ourselves to do certain things. And so what we're really teaching children when we do this, we're teaching them to be creative as well, because they learn from us. And parents who do this and get good at doing this, get good at being creative with their children and motivating them, their children themselves become very creative at motivating themselves, which means that you're really teaching them a very valuable lesson. And I would, even though I'm very careful, and even though I say some things on here, you need to be careful in the way that you present them, but I would often talk to parents in this way without being condescending or telling them how to parent, but just saying that we're helping our kids to become creative and to think creative by being creative ourselves in the way that we deal with them. Yeah, so that's pretty well it. Ben, did you want to add anything else there?
I think that's okay. I had a question, but I'll leave it till next week. I had internet troubles getting on today, so I was a bit late.
Okay, no worries. Just remember next week, no hangout. Trevor, if you can remember that as well. Next week there'll be no hangout. And yeah, so skip next week, and I'll be back the week after. Going down to Sydney and meeting the guys in person down there. So hopefully be able to get some interesting feedback from just being there and watching Joachim School in action, seeing his classes, and I'll come back with some information on that and try and give you guys some ideas of what I've seen. Yeah.
If he doesn't mind, it'd be great if you could film a bit.
Yeah, I'm going to try. It's just going to depend on who's there and
The parents and stuff.
Students, parents, etc. Yeah, I don't want to just come in, take over, and start filming everything. But I hope to film something. Yeah, it'd be great if I could. So yeah. All right. Thanks, guys. And I'm signing off. I've got a very early flight. It's now 9 o'clock here, but I've got a 6 o'clock flight. So I will say goodbye and see you guys very soon. By the way, Trevor, just before you go, Ben, you